All right. Welcome everyone to Marin CIL's Empowerment Town Hall. My name is Dana Pep, and this is...
I'm Peter Mendoza, the Director of Advocacy for the Marin Center for Independent Living. Great to be with you all, and a proud member of the Psps Power Squad, one of your presenters tonight. Good to be here.
Thank you. We are the Psps. You'll learn Public Safety Power Shutoff Power Squad. And tonight, before we begin, I want to be sure to introduce the squad. Ellie, do you want to introduce yourself and share your role at Marin CIL?
Sure. My name is Ellie Augustine, and I help with the PSPS. They call me the Battery Queen around here because I manage that program, and I also help keeping track of data and helping clients one-on-one. I also speak Spanish, so working with our Spanish folks. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ellie. Great. Susan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm with the Power Squad, and my role is a lot with logistics, supporting the team, and just making sure, all the logistics are made.
Thank you very much. And Eli, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
My name is Eli. I get to be the showrunner at Marin Center for Independent Living, and I tell bad jokes.
Thank you. Very, very accurate. And we're lucky to have Danielle captioning tonight. And again, if you need the closed captioning, you should be able to access it at the bottom of your Zoom under CC or closed captioning. Again, thank you all for being here. We so appreciate it. A couple Zoom housekeeping tips. We would love it if you could keep your mics off or muted. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat box. If that doesn't work for you, you can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask a question. We want this to be a really engaging experience. We find that if you have a question, probably somebody else in the room or in the Zoom also has a similar question. So feel free to ask questions that are targeted to what we're talking about. And we're gonna begin. So what are we doing here and why are you here? Well, first off, it's important to learn and be prepared for any kind of emergency. Today we're gonna talk about PSPSs, Public Safety Power Shutoffs, and about the resources you can access through Marin Center for Independent Living. We'll talk about tips, how to get ready, what is this shelter in place, how to evacuate, what is this disaster kit people talk about, and more importantly, how to stay connected and informed so you know what's happening. There'll be plenty of time for questions and answers and plenty of information to share with you. Again, the more we can share this information with you and others, the more our whole community can be informed. So what we ask of you tonight is your fabulous questions, your participation, and also more importantly, to share what you learn with others so that everyone can be prepared for a public safety power shutoff or a shelter in place or another disaster. Peter.
Thank you, Dana. And I just want to first acknowledge everyone for being here tonight and also recognize that, we talk about emergencies or disaster preparedness, especially with everything going on now. It can cause some anxiety, so we just want to own that and say that we're here to help folks learn the skills that they need so they have the best chance to be able to be prepared in an emergency. So I wanted to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about Marin Center for Independent Living. Marin Center for Independent Living was established in 1979, and it was really born out of the world-changing independent living movement, which started in the 1960s with Ed Roberts. He was a person who had a severe disability, used a wheelchair, he was a quadriplegic, and breathed with the assistance of an iron lung and respiratory equipment. Well, he was coming of age and wanted to go to UC Berkeley. And UC Berkeley told him he couldn't go to UC Berkeley. So he advocated, and with a group of other people with disability, was eventually admitted into UC Berkeley. But he and the other members of the Rolling Quads recognized the need to have services and supports and accessibility throughout the community. So he started advocating for curb cuts and physical accessibility, and eventually started the started the Berkeley Center for Independent Living back in 1972, which has now become a worldwide movement. And that's how Marin Center for Independent Living was born. And our mission is to support people with disabilities participate as equal members of society and achieve their maximum level of independence. And so whether you're coming as a young person, like I did when I was 16, I really needed to learn the skills to be independent. I lived with my parents and I wanted to live on my own. So whether you come in to learn about how to hire a caregiver, find an apartment,
Very, very special.
learn basic advocacy skills, learn how to manage home health care. Maybe you need help making your apartment or your home accessible, or you need assistive technology or any of our other services to begin your journey towards independence, or if you acquire a disability later. We're the people who can provide you the expertise to help you. One thing that's really neat about our agency is that the majority of our staff and our board are people with disability.
Oh, is that a school?
So you really learn from people who have firsthand knowledge how to build your independence.
Are you good with that, Peter, or should I move forward?
You can go forward.
All right, thank you. So I just want to remind folks, and I tried, but my powers are not so fabulous. I tried to mute folks, and just in case you came on late, it helps if everyone stays muted, unless you later have a question that you can't put in the chat box, because that way it helps everybody else connect and hear better. So thank you so much for muting your microphones. So how did this whole PSPS movement come about? Well, PG&E said, we want to make sure that people with disabilities are prepared. There are going to be wildfires. We've already experienced them. There are going to be PSPSs, public safety power shutoffs, which is when PG&E shuts off the power because of the heat or the wind and the risk of wildfires. So we know about PSPSs. We know there are wildfires. We know there are shelter-in-place situations, other disasters. And so they formed a partnership with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers and said, let's share information, education, resources with folks, and prepare people ahead of time. So the goal in all of this, it's kind of like the umbrella analogy I like to say. You take the umbrella with you and it doesn't rain. The goal is the more you prepare now, as Peter said earlier, the less anxious you'll feel when there is a power shut off. You'll be prepared, you'll know what to do. It'll be like a secondhand kind of activity. So we want to reduce any stress and anxiety and support you and your loved ones in preparing for a PSPS. So hopefully you've seen this before, and we're going to talk a little bit about what a PSPS is and the resources that Marin Center for Independent Living can provide. So again, the more you share this information, the more you mention to folks, hey, I was just on this webinar. I learned everything I need to know to prepare for any kind of emergency. And you should go to www.marincil.org and you pull up the screen and you'll find everything you'd ever want to know about PSPS events. So what does this program include and what do you need during a PSPS, a public safety power shutoff? Well, first of all, MCIL, Marin CIL, they are the experts in the county, in the area, around how to help folks with disabilities live healthy, independent, and safely during all times, not just during a natural disaster or a PSPS. So they're the experts with everything to do with disabilities. Through this program, they want to connect you so that you're part of the team. They want to give you information, education, and tools about how to create your own disaster kit, how to create an evacuation plan, how to learn and be sure you're hooked into the information to get alerts ahead of time when a PSPS may happen. They also have access to portable batteries to help people who use durable medical equipment and require power to keep powered on during an emergency or a PSPS. And we'll also talk about the medical baseline program, which can help you not only financially, but with alerts in case there is a PSPS.
And that's a great lead-in, Dana. What I'm going to talk about, we're going to cover a little more about the medical baseline. First, as Dana mentioned, the medical baseline is an important program for people with disabilities. It allows folks that use durable medical equipment to be able to get a discount on their PG&E bill. And also, it also covers, for example, let's say you have to run more heat because you have temperature regulation issues in the winter, or you have maybe in the summertime, you have temperature regulation issues and have to run your air conditioner, or you have a power wheelchair use or another mobility device, or you can even have an automatic door or other systems that require power. That costs money. And so what PG&E does is they have the medical baseline program. What's also really unique about this program is it's not income-based. So anybody with qualified medical equipment because of a disability health condition can apply for this program. Another important program, which is why we really want you to sign up, is you'll get increased notifications about a public safety power shutoff. PG&E will call you, they'll text you, they'll email you, and they'll even come out to your house and make sure that you know that a public safety power shutoff is about to happen so that you can be aware and take steps to be able to be okay. Now, I want to talk about what is a portable battery and who needs one. People with disabilities and older adults who rely on power for durable medical equipment, for either independent living mobility, most importantly, life safety. People who have, as I mentioned, wheelchairs, automatic doors, maybe people who use nebulizers or CPAP machines, or people who need power for life-sustaining needs or independent living. Now, I want to point out that we've provided a number of batteries, and there's currently a waiting list, but don't be concerned. Marin CIL is working as fast as we can to acquire more batteries.
Thank you, Peter. And not everybody who connects with Marin CIL will need a battery, will they, Peter?
No, they won't. And there will be some people where a battery is not an answer. Maybe they have multiple devices they use that require power. And in those cases, we can steer folks to other resources that can provide more sustainable power. Or in some cases, we can also provide funding for hotel rooms and even food during an extended public safety power shutoff.
All the more reason to be sure you are on the Marin CIL list, because when and if things start going down and PSPSs are coming up and you need more support, they're there for you. You don't want to wait to the last minute. Again, it's like that umbrella analogy, right? You want to plan ahead. So raise your hand. I can't see a lot of you, but raise your hand if you have a disaster kit. Okay, I'm guessing just from experience that at least half of you are not raising your hands. Lisa, I'm glad you raised your hand. Nicole, thank you. Excellent. So look at all these prepared people. This is making me, my heart is just a flutter. So glad. Why is it important? Because even if, and we'll talk about getting notifications through various modes later. Even if you're notified, you might have a few minutes or hour, whatever. You don't want to wait to the last minute to pack your disaster kit. We're going to talk today all about disaster kits, what you'll need for your personal care, how to start putting one together. And again, once you talk to the folks at Marin Center for Independent Living, they can walk you through the steps that you need to be sure you include. We're also going to talk about evacuations. Sometimes staying in your home during a PSPS or other emergency isn't the safest thing to do. So have you thought about evacuations? We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Key plan ahead. Different folks have different needs. And do you need an interpreter? Do you need certain medical devices? Do you need your service animal with you? A lot to consider. The more you plan ahead, the smoother things will go. All right, really important. We are passionate about this. Do you have a personal support network? We're especially concerned with folks who may live alone or be more isolated. The goal is that you have people you know you can depend on. You don't need a huge group of people, maybe 3 people, people you work with, family, friends, neighbors, people you trust. Because if you do need to evacuate and maybe you don't drive, it's good to have people who are on your team, who know where you are and know what your needs are. So if you don't have already in your mind an idea of a couple folks you're gonna call, it's a good thing to think about these people and to let them know, hey, Eli, guess what? You're in my personal support network. Here's what I'm thinking in case of an emergency. I just went to this webinar and I really want to clarify things. So really important that you and your friends and family have this personal support network. Peter, tell us, Peter is an expert, tell us everything we should include in these disaster kits.
Thank you, Dana. And just some of the things that you should include, besides the usual things we talk about, 3 days supply of water, water sanitation, and non-perishable food for 3 days. Of course, you want to have a can opener, alternative cooking, shampoo, and all your basic supplies. You also want to have other items too available, like for example, extra medications to last you a few days. You also want to have any information that you need to have. Well, we'll talk about that with the Go Kit, but you want to carry extra medication. You want to have a non-perishable food. That's important. You want to be able to have what you need to be comfortable if you have to shelter at home for multiple days without power. You want to have eyeglasses, diabetes supplies, hearing aids, a mask. Have all your insurance cards, health cards, photo ID, and birth certificates. Everything you need to be comfortable. You also want to have information about who your doctor is, who your personal support folks are, who knows who you are and who can provide information in an emergency, how to get a hold of your home health aides. You want to have all the emergency information right there at your fingertips so that you or someone else can access the information. Okay, now we're going to talk more about shelter in place for essentials. You want to have, if you have a service dog, you want to have pet food. Can't talk today. You want to have pet food, bedding, leashes, harnesses. You want to have batteries for your cell phone, a battery-powered radio, a battery-operated flashlight, extra batteries, identification tags. You also want to, if you have durable medical equipment, write down the serial numbers for your wheelchairs, mobility devices, scooters, any other mobility equipment or durable medical equipment. Write down the serial numbers and also where you got the equipment. And reach out to the people that sold you the equipment, the vendors, so you can find out anything you need to know about how to charge the equipment and what sort of power you'll need if no power is available, how to charge the equipment and maintain. You also want to have tools to repair the equipment. And you want to make sure that your home health aides also know how to support you during this time.
Thank you, Peter. All right, we did so well with the disaster kit. Raise your hand if you've thought about, ooh, things are going down, I might have to leave my house. How shall I evacuate? Have you thought about an evacuation plan? A way out of your house? Because actually, when you think, yay, I love that so many of you are so prepared. That's fantastic. So much to consider, right? How can you leave physically? What if one door is locked or blocked? Can you leave through the other door? And is your path clear? What if it's nighttime? What if it's raining? Do you have your flashlights with new batteries so that you can see your way out? How can you leave your home? Do you have a car? Or is someone within your personal support network able to pick you up? So there's so many things to think about. As Peter said, who's coming with you? What are you bringing? Where is all that stuff you're bringing? Ideally, folks in past town halls have said, oh, if I put all that stuff in one bag, it's too heavy. You're right. Put it in multiple bags, and ideally next to the door so that it's easy to evacuate. And again, if you have an animal, other people going with you, you should have enough supplies for everyone. Lisa, great comment. Bikes, a wagon in case you need to ride with a dog or with a person, and neighbors can help neighbors. But I think what's so important is it's okay to talk about what you're going to do if there's a PSPS or a disaster, because the more you talk about it and the more you prepare, the more you'll feel confident and comfortable and safe to know that things will go the way you want them to go when it happens. So talking to neighbors about, hey, if we do lose power or we need to evacuate, can you pick me up? Having those conversations now and creating that community is more important than ever. Peter, talk about some of the rights that people with disabilities have in general and especially during these disasters.
You know, people with disabilities under the Americans with Disabilities Act and other laws have the rights during a disaster to have the shelter or wherever you're going to be accessible, to have information offered in alternative formats, whether it's digitally or some other method so that you can understand the alerts and information. The disaster alerts have to be accessible too. You have the right to be included in the community evacuation plans. You have the right for disability services and supports accessible in the community shelter. And you have the right to remain in the general population shelter and not be transferred to a medical shelter or some other facility just because you have a disability. For example, if you need personal assistant services or a home health assistant, you have the right to have that service in the shelter. You have the right to have barrier-free, accessible housing. You have the right to have your service animals with you throughout the evacuation, sheltering, and temporary housing. And you have the right to file a complaint or advocate for yourself. And we've listed a couple of numbers here for FEMA and Department of Healthcare Services when you file complaints. And you have the right to participate in disaster planning as well. So you have a right to have the whole experience. While it's a difficult one, you have the right to have your rights upheld and for it to be accessible and usable for you.
Thank you, Peter. Most importantly, you're all doing the right thing right now. By spending an hour at this webinar, you are learning and maybe feeling even more confident that you are ready for a PSPS, another shelter in place, or another emergency. We believe that knowledge is power. And the more you learn and the more well-informed you are, the more prepared and the better the outcome will be. So we are encouraging everyone to stay informed. And there are different ways you can do that. Alert Marin can send you a text or an email. Nixle, if you send a text message to 888-777, you enter your zip code. If there is an emergency or even a police alert, they will send you a text and let you know what's happening. As Peter said, if you qualify for medical baseline and sign up for medical baseline, they'll also send you alerts in advance of a PSPS. So if PG&E is your provider or MCE is your provider, whoever your power provider is, we want to be sure that your information is up to date with them, because their goal is to reduce the number of PSPSs, to reduce the length of time power is cut off, and to give folks as much advance notice as possible. So be sure you go to pgne.com, wildfire alerts, or MCE, and be sure your information, especially your cell phone number, is current and up to date so you can get those text alerts.
The other thing that we need you to do is, because this webinar touches the surface, is to really, as it says here, go to marincil.org/PSPS, fill out the application if you feel that you can benefit from these services, so that we can work with you directly to provide you information about the type of support that's available and build a plan that will work for you. So please do that right away, like right after this webinar.
Right after the webinar, and share it with your friends. Peter's right. The application is super easy. If accessing the computer doesn't work for you, call 415-459-6245 and someone can help you fill out the application. It's simple. After you fill out the application, within a couple days, someone will email and or call you and say, we got your information. We're going to set up a time and talk. And then they'll go through everything: the disaster kit, the evacuation plan, personal support network, medical baseline, power, portable batteries, etc. So the goal is to get connected now, and get connected to Marin Center for Independent Living, but also get connected to your personal support network and people who are going to be there for you during a PSPS, a shelter in place, or another disaster. We at Marin CIL are here for you, and we want you to be prepared ahead of time so that when a PSPS happens, you're like, oh, no biggie, I got this, I'm prepared. Again, if you go to www.marincil.org/PSPS, you'll see the application, simple, easy. Please fill it out, and someone from Marin CIL will get back to you very soon. What else are we missing, Power Squad? So I'm asking Eli, Susan, and Ellie. Oh, Lisa has another question. Before we go on, Lisa, what's your question? Or your hand is raised and you didn't know your hand was raised.
We also have
My hand is raised and I didn't know it was raised. Let me put my hand down. Sorry.
Oh, Lisa, you're always welcome to raise your hand. So
actually, I just have to say, I commend you on the presentation, and it's really important because I think that the personalization of a emergency preparedness kit is really, really key, because you can buy anything off the shelf and you'll like be able to eat for a couple of days or have some water. But if you need those your batteries for your hearing aids or your special glasses or whatever, those are the things that are going to make your experience either bearable or miserable. So that's really great that you mentioned that.
thank you, Lisa. In fact, you bring up a really good point, and actually something that I did. I have one of those just regular kits of here's what you need to live for a couple days if things, if you need to evacuate, etc. And then I also have another bag which is customized for me. So people can do both. You can get the basic bag and then work with Marin CIL, and they'll say, did you include this? How about this or the other? Because everyone's needs are different, right? Okay, good question. Good question for Peter. Peter, if you need a hotel due to temperature sensitivity, is there help for that? Or if you have another disability that a battery just doesn't cut it and you lose power, can you get housed through Marin CIL?
We do have limited funding for hotels and other supports through the PSPS, like food. But this is where it's really important to reach out to Marin CIL directly so that we can discuss those options with you to really figure out what would be the best option. And certainly, if a person needs a hotel, we have resources and we have connections with hotels to make that happen. We really need to hear from people right away. Remember, the key to making it through an emergency or disaster is really planning.
Yes.
Planning and practicing your plan is really important. So the planning part starts with us. Sign up, fill out the application, call us if you need help to complete the application, but talk to us right away.
Thank you, Peter. And Patty mentioned a good point. You might want to have a disaster kit, a grab and go kit, and also have, shelter in place essentials. As we've learned because of COVID, your home where you live should be equipped with what you need for not just a day or two, but maybe a week or two in case you can't get to the store. So yes, I think COVID has taught us a lot that it's important at home to have your shelter in place items and to have your disaster go bags or go kits, which again, as Peter said, Marin CIL can help you put together. And just so you know, this fabulous program is happening throughout California. So if you have people, your family, friends, who live outside of Marin County, not a problem. They can go to www.disabilitydisasteraccess.org and enter in where they live, and their application for support during a PSPS will be sent to the Independent Living Center closest to them. So this program is throughout California. PG&E and the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers, they want to be sure that everyone, and especially people with disabilities, can thrive during a PSPS, a shelter in place, or another disaster. And again, we have time for questions, but we want to acknowledge how we appreciate you being here. We hope that you will share this information near and far, and that you'll go to the website, www.marincil.org, PSPS, and fill out an application to see how Marin CIL can help you with your needs during a PSPS, shelter in place, or other emergency. So more questions, more thoughts? Power Squad, any other thoughts, Eli?
Yes, great presentation again, Power Squad leaders. So this weekend is supposed to be really warm, high temperatures. And Marin has been fortunate to date not to have a PSPS, but just in the efforts of advanced planning and being prepared, be advised to definitely have your disaster kit preparedness plan ready sooner than later. And the other point I wanted to add, another reason to enroll in Medical Baseline as well as our PSPS program is you will be identified as needing support in a PSPS and also given some advance notice. In other words, when we find out there's a power shutoff, you will find out there's a power shutoff.
Thank you. Yes, another reason to plan ahead. And, with power shutoffs, sometimes it means you might need to leave your home, but often it's a shelter in place situation, right, Eli? So you'll need to have what you need at home, food, drinks, water, snacks, etc., to, live without power for hours at a time. Thank you, Eli. Any other questions or comments from the Power Squad?
One thing I wanted to mention is it's really important to talk about the people that you identify as on your team for helping you during an emergency. So your circle of support folks. it's important that you talk to them about what exactly you need so they know and the type of support they're expected to survive. They're expected to provide. Also, remember that many folks who support us are also folks with their own disabilities. So make sure you provide them information too so they can be prepared. It takes all of us together. You know, they call it independent living, but it's really interdependent. And we all get by with support from our communities.
So I thought you were going to break out into song that we get by with a little help from our friends, Peter.
I can do that. We get by with a little help from
our friends. And we hope that you all are now connected to Marin Center for Independent Living, and feel free to email, go online, fill out an application, call us, whatever. We are all here for you. Any further questions? You can just unmute yourself.
I see a couple of people posted in chat.
We've read those. Yeah, we've gone over those. Okay. Are there more folks who would like to either post on chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question? You have experts on the call with you. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, we want to say thank you. Have a great, cool evening. And as Eli mentioned, it is never too late to prepare for a potential PSPS with the fire season already starting and the heat we're expecting this weekend, to just be prepared to live safely and independently and happily in your home, on your own, with your loved ones. We want to be there for you. So thank you again for participating in this webinar. We appreciate you, and we hope you take care. Peter, anything else?
We, on behalf of all of us in the Marin CIL family, we're really grateful that you're here. We look forward to serving you, and reach out to us anytime with anything that relates to people with disabilities, older adults, especially PSPS. We're here for you, so reach out to us.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Power Squad. And thank you, Danielle, for your fabulous closed captioning. Again, if you missed part of this webinar, if someone you know didn't get to catch it, it will be on the website, which is, I'll say it again, www.marincil.org, PSPS, and you can access this webinar and share it with your friends. Have a fabulous evening, everybody, and take care.
Good night, everyone.